The Iron Lady and a Nation in Crisis. When Margaret Thatcher became Britain's first female prime minister in 1979, she inherited a nation on the brink. Economic stagnation, soaring inflation, widespread strikes, and public discontent had left the country fractured and fearful. Industries were failing, communities were struggling, and confidence in government was low. Thatcher's rise was not just a political milestone. It was a bold statement in a male-dominated world. Known for her unwavering resolve, she approached Britain's crises with a combination of strict economic policies, firm ideology, and unshakable conviction. Her vision was clear: to revive Britain's economy, restore global influence, and impose order on social unrest. But change came across. The very measures designed to restore strength, privatization, curbing trade unions, and tight fiscal control, sparked protests and deep divisions. Thatcher's uncompromising style earned admiration and criticism in equal measure. To some, she was the savior of Britain's economy. To others, the architect of inequality and social tension. This documentary explores the early years of Thatcher's premiership, a period of immense turmoil and transformation. We trace how the Iron Lady confronted strikes, reshaped government, and began a journey that would define Britain for decades to come. In understanding Margaret Thatcher, we see not just a leader, but a force of conviction whose policies, decisions, and controversies left a lasting imprint on a nation struggling to find its way. Early life in Grantham. Roots of conviction. Margaret Thatcher was born on October 13, 1925, in the small market town of Grantham, Lincolnshire. The daughter of a grocer and local alderman, she grew up in a household where discipline, hard work, and a strong sense of civic duty were the foundation of daily life. Her father, Alfred Roberts, was a man of steadfast principle, instilling in young Margaret a belief in self-reliance, moral responsibility, and the importance of public service. These early lessons shaped her worldview, teaching her that success required determination, education, and a firm grasp of one's values. From a young age, Margaret displayed remarkable ambition. Excelling academically, she won a scholarship to the all-girls grammar school, where her intellectual curiosity and determination set her apart. Science, debate, and political thought became her early passions, revealing a mind both disciplined and daring. Life in Grantham was modest, yet it offered lessons that would resonate throughout her life. The value of community, the challenges of economic hardship, and the need for decisive action. These experiences, combined with the influence of her father's conservative outlook, planted the seeds of a conviction that would later define her political career. This chapter of Thatcher's life shows us the formation of a leader, rooted in principle, shaped by circumstance, and guided by an unyielding sense of purpose. Before the world knew the Iron Lady, there was a young girl in Grantham learning the meaning of perseverance, responsibility, and ambition. Education, ambition, and political identity. Margaret Thatcher's formative years were defined not just by discipline, but by an insatiable drive to learn and excel. After excelling at her local grammar school in Grantham, she won a place at Somerville College, Oxford, where she studied chemistry. At Oxford, her academic rigor was matched by a growing interest in politics and public life. It was here that Thatcher's political identity began to take shape. She joined the Oxford University Conservative Association, engaging in debates, developing her voice, and learning the art of persuasion. Her experiences at university exposed her to differing viewpoints, yet also reinforced her belief in personal responsibility, free enterprise, and the value of strong leadership. Ambition and intellect combined in Thatcher, fueling a desire not just to understand the world, but to influence it. She understood early on that political change required not only ideas, but determination, resilience, and the courage to act decisively. These qualities would become hallmarks of her career. By the time she graduated, Margaret Thatcher was no longer just a student of science or politics. She was a young woman shaped by principle, guided by ambition, and prepared to challenge the conventions of a male-dominated political world. Her education had provided knowledge, but it was her ambition and emerging convictions that would define the path ahead. This chapter illuminates how study, debate, and a commitment to conviction forged the foundation for the leader who would one day be called the Iron Lady. Breaking barriers, a woman enters British politics. Margaret Thatcher's entry into British politics was groundbreaking. In the 1950s, politics was overwhelmingly male-dominated, a world where women were rarely heard, let alone seen in leadership roles. Yet Thatcher approached this environment with determination, intellect, and an unshakable belief in her own capabilities. Her first steps were careful but deliberate. She joined the Conservative Party, worked tirelessly as a local activist, and cultivated a reputation for precision, discipline, and clear thinking. Campaigning in elections, she faced both skepticism and outright dismissal, yet her ambition never wavered. Thatcher's early political career was a test of resilience. She learned to navigate the intricate dynamics of Parliament, balancing her convictions with a need to persuade colleagues and constituents. Each speech, debate, and vote became a lesson in strategy and leadership. Her rise was not just about personal ambition. It symbolized a shift in the possibilities for women in public life. Thatcher proved that intellect, preparation, and perseverance could overcome entrenched gender expectations. By the time she entered Parliament, she had already broken the first of many barriers. She was no longer just a talented student or determined activist. She was a politician in her own right, ready to make her mark on a nation in need of leadership and reform. This chapter of her life captures the courage, discipline, and tenacity that would define the Iron Lady, setting the stage for a career that would transform British politics forever. Rise within the Conservative Party. Margaret Thatcher's ascent within the Conservative Party was a testament to her intellect, discipline, and relentless ambition. After entering Parliament in 1959 as the member for Finchley, she quickly distinguished herself through careful preparation, persuasive arguments, and an unwavering commitment to her principles. Her early years in the House of Commons were not easy. As a woman in a male-dominated institution, she faced skepticism, condescension, and occasional dismissal. Yet Thatcher used these challenges as opportunities to demonstrate resilience, clarity, and political skill. She learned the art of debate, mastered parliamentary procedure, and built alliances that would support her future ambitions. Over time, Thatcher gained recognition for her sharp analysis of policy and her ability to communicate complex ideas with precision. Her reputation grew not just for competence, but for conviction, an unyielding belief in individual responsibility, free enterprise, and the importance of strong governance. By the late 1960s and early 1970s, Thatcher had earned key positions within the Conservative Party, including her appointment as Secretary of State for Education and Science in 1970. Each role allowed her to refine her leadership, test her ideas, and prove that she could navigate the highest levels of government. This period marks the transformation of Margaret Thatcher from a promising newcomer into a rising force within the Conservative Party, laying the foundation for the historic premiership that would follow. Her rise was not sudden. It was deliberate, disciplined, and defined by an unshakable sense of purpose. Britain before Thatcher: economic and social turmoil. By the late 1970s, Britain was a nation in crisis. Years of industrial decline, rising unemployment, and runaway inflation had left the economy fragile and uncertain. Factories closed, communities suffered, and the promise of post-war prosperity felt distant. Social unrest mirrored economic instability. Strikes became frequent, affecting transport, public services, and essential industries. The Winter of Discontent in 1978 to 79 symbolized a country struggling to maintain order, with daily life disrupted and public confidence in government at a historic low. The political landscape was equally unstable. Governments struggled to balance spending, curb inflation, and negotiate with powerful trade unions. Public frustration grew, and many questioned whether Britain could overcome its deep structural problems. Amid this turbulence, the stage was set for a leader willing to take bold, decisive action. The nation needed someone unafraid to confront entrenched systems, challenge conventional policies, and offer a vision of renewal. Economic theory, social reform, and political courage would all collide in the years to come. Understanding Britain before Thatcher provides essential context for her rise. The challenges she faced were not abstract. They were real, urgent, and deeply felt by millions of citizens. Her premiership would be defined by her response to these crises, for better or worse. This chapter illuminates the stakes: a nation teetering on the edge, a population yearning for stability, and the backdrop against which Margaret Thatcher would emerge as a transformative, polarizing, and enduring figure. Becoming Prime Minister, a historic first. In May 1979, Margaret Thatcher made history. She became the first woman to lead Britain as Prime Minister, stepping into 10 Downing Street at a time of economic uncertainty, social unrest, and political division. Her victory was more than personal. It marked a turning point in British politics, demonstrating that leadership could transcend tradition and gender. Thatcher assumed office with a clear vision: to restore economic stability, strengthen national confidence, and assert firm control over a government that many believed had lost its way. Her approach was decisive, uncompromising, and deeply informed by her convictions about free enterprise, personal responsibility, and strong governance. The nation she inherited was struggling. Inflation was high, unemployment was rising, and public services were strained. Strikes and protests continued to disrupt daily life, reflecting the frustrations of millions who felt left behind by decades of stagnation. Thatcher understood that bold, sometimes controversial measures would be required to reverse the country's decline. Her early months as Prime Minister set the tone for a leadership style that would come to define her career. She combined intellectual rigor with political courage, unafraid to challenge entrenched institutions and public expectations. Allies and critics alike quickly recognized that Britain was entering an era shaped by the Iron Lady's firm hand. This chapter of her life captures both the historic milestone of her premiership and the immense challenges she faced from the outset. Thatcher's rise was not only a personal achievement, but a decisive moment in the story of modern Britain. Thatcherism, ideology and economic revolution. Thatcherism became more than a label. It was a philosophy, a blueprint for transforming Britain's economy and society. Rooted in free market principles, individual responsibility, and limited government intervention, it represented a sharp departure from decades of state-led policies and post-war consensus politics. Margaret Thatcher believed that Britain's stagnation was the result of excessive government control over powerful unions and a culture that discouraged ambition. Her solution was bold: privatization of state-owned industries, deregulation of markets, and an emphasis on entrepreneurship. Wealth creation, she argued, would restore confidence, investment, and national pride. But Thatcherism was more than economics. It was a moral vision, a belief that citizens should take responsibility for their own lives, that merit and effort mattered, and that strong leadership required clarity of purpose. These ideas were often controversial, provoking admiration and opposition in equal measure. Implementation was not easy. Industries that had supported communities for generations were sold or restructured. Unemployment rose in the short term, and social tensions intensified. Yet, Thatcher remained steadfast, arguing that long-term prosperity required difficult, sometimes unpopular choices. This chapter explores how ideology became action, how conviction reshaped policy, and how one leader's vision challenged the assumptions of an entire nation. Thatcherism left a mark that would define Britain for decades, a testament to the Iron Lady's belief in principle, reform, and enduring strength. Confrontation at home, trade unions, and social conflict. One of Margaret Thatcher's first major challenges as Prime Minister was confronting the power of Britain's trade unions. By the late 1970s, unions had become a formidable force, able to disrupt essential services, challenge government authority, and shape national policy. For Thatcher, this was a problem both practical and ideological. She believed that unchecked union power had contributed to economic stagnation, inflation, and social unrest. Strikes in key industries, from coal to transport, were crippling daily life and weakening public confidence. Thatcher argued that reform was necessary not to punish workers, but to restore balance and protect the nation's long-term stability. The confrontation was fierce. Laws were introduced to limit strike action, regulate union activity, and ensure that work continued even amid industrial disputes. These measures were met with fierce opposition, protests, and, at times, violent clashes. The most famous of these confrontations came in the early 1980s during the miners' strike, a battle that symbolized the struggle between tradition and reform, loyalty and principle. Through all, Thatcher remained resolute. She framed the conflict not as an attack on workers, but as a defense of the country's economic health and democratic institutions. The struggle at home tested her leadership, sharpened her convictions, and defined her reputation as a determined, unyielding leader. This chapter highlights the tension between reform and resistance, illustrating how Thatcher's domestic policies reshaped Britain and left a lasting impact on society, politics, and the nation's collective memory. Privatization and the reshaping of Britain. Margaret Thatcher believed that the state had grown too large, too controlling, and too inefficient. One of her most defining policies was privatization, selling government-owned industries and utilities to private investors. From telecommunications to steel, from gas to airlines, she sought to transform the economy, reduce bureaucracy, and create a culture of personal responsibility. Privatization was both economic and symbolic. It challenged the post-war consensus, promoted competition, and encouraged citizens to take ownership in the nation's wealth. Thatcher argued that empowering individuals and markets would drive innovation, efficiency, and prosperity. Yet the process was controversial. Communities built around nationalized industries faced job losses and social disruption. Critics accused her of favoring the wealthy and deepening inequality. Supporters, however, praised her courage in confronting entrenched interest and modernizing an economy long burdened by inefficiency and state control. The policy reshaped Britain in profound ways. It altered the relationship between government and citizens, encouraged entrepreneurship, and left a legacy of market-driven reform. It was a radical experiment, guided by Thatcher's conviction that strong leadership, decisive action, and adherence to principle could revive a nation. This chapter examines how privatization became a central pillar of Thatcherism, transforming the economy, redefining public life, and leaving an enduring imprint on Britain's social and political landscape. The Falklands War, leadership under fire. In April 1982, a crisis thousands of miles away would test Margaret Thatcher's leadership like never before. Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, a small British territory in the South Atlantic, challenging Britain's authority and national pride. The situation demanded swift, decisive action, and the world watched closely. Thatcher's response was firm and unambiguous. She committed Britain to defending the islands, ordering a naval task force to retake control. Her decision reflected not only strategic calculation, but a belief in principle. Sovereignty could not be surrendered, and hesitation would undermine national confidence. The war was short but intense. British forces faced logistical challenges, harsh weather, and fierce combat. Back home, Thatcher communicated her determination clearly, inspiring public support and boosting morale. The conflict tested her judgment, resilience, and ability to make high-stakes decisions under pressure. Victory in the Falklands enhanced Thatcher's standing at home and abroad. It reinforced her image as a leader willing to act decisively, even in the face of uncertainty and risk. Yet the human cost was undeniable, with lives lost and families affected, highlighting the weight of responsibility carried by those in power. This chapter explores how the Falklands War solidified Thatcher's reputation as the Iron Lady, resolute, courageous, and uncompromising, while demonstrating the complex intersection of principle, politics, and leadership in times of national crisis. Cold War politics and the Reagan alliance. Margaret Thatcher's premiership unfolded during the tense years of the Cold War, a period defined by the ideological standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union. She recognized the importance of strong international alliances and shared strategic objectives with Western powers. Her partnership with U.S. President Ronald Reagan became a defining feature of this era. Despite differences in style, both leaders shared a commitment to confronting the Soviet threat, promoting free markets, and standing firm against communism. Their alliance extended beyond diplomacy. It was a meeting of minds rooted in conviction, principle, and an unwavering belief in Western values. Thatcher advocated for a firm defense policy, supporting NATO and maintaining Britain's nuclear deterrent. She viewed weakness as dangerous, believing that global stability depended on strength, clarity, and consistent action. This approach often drew criticism at home, but Thatcher argued that national security and international credibility could not be compromised. The alliance with Reagan also reinforced Britain's role on the global stage. Together, they projected resolve and confidence, sending a clear signal to allies and adversaries alike. Thatcher's foreign policy during the Cold War combined pragmatism with principle, diplomacy with firmness, and vision with the demands of leadership under pressure. This chapter examines how the Iron Lady navigated the treacherous waters of global politics, balancing national interests, international alliances, and ideological conviction, shaping Britain's role in a world defined by tension and uncertainty. Europe, sovereignty, and growing division. Margaret Thatcher's relationship with Europe was complex, defined by both cooperation and caution. While she recognized the economic benefits of the European community, she was deeply concerned about the erosion of national sovereignty and the centralization of power in Brussels. Thatcher's famous insistence that Britain should decide its own destiny reflected a belief that democracy worked best when decisions were made close to the people they affected. She resisted moves toward a federal Europe, arguing that excessive integration threatened Britain's autonomy and its ability to chart its own course. Her stance created both allies and adversaries. Some admired her principled defense of national sovereignty, while others saw it as obstructionist or out of step with the emerging European project. Thatcher's positions sparked intense debate in Parliament, in the media, and across Europe, highlighting the tensions between national identity and collective governance. Economically, Thatcher recognized the importance of trade and cooperation, negotiating Britain's contributions and ensuring that the country benefited from membership. Politically, she used Europe as a platform to assert Britain's voice and protect its interests, demonstrating strategic pragmatism alongside firm conviction. This chapter explores how Thatcher balanced partnership and independence, cooperation and resistance, diplomacy and principle. Her approach to Europe left a lasting impact on British politics, shaping debates that continue to influence the nation's role on the continent decades later. Winners and losers. The social cost of reform. Margaret Thatcher's economic and social reforms reshaped Britain, but they came with significant costs. Privatization, deregulation, and curbs on union power created new opportunities for some, yet left others struggling to adapt to a rapidly changing society. Entrepreneurs, investors, and business-minded individuals benefited from a freer market and reduced government interference. At the same time, communities built around declining industries, coal, steel, and manufacturing, faced unemployment, social unrest, and economic hardship. The gap between prosperity and struggle became increasingly visible, fueling debate over fairness, responsibility, and the role of government. Thatcher framed these changes as necessary for long-term national recovery. She argued that individual initiative and personal responsibility would drive growth, innovation, and social mobility. Critics countered that the pace and scope of reform disproportionately impacted the vulnerable, creating divisions that reverberated across communities and generations. The social cost of reform tested both political leadership and public patience. Strikes, protests, and widespread dissatisfaction highlighted the human consequences of economic transformation. Yet for Thatcher, enduring change required courage, conviction, and a willingness to make unpopular decisions for the sake of national renewal. This chapter examines the tension between progress and pain, illustrating how Thatcher's policies created both winners and losers, while leaving a lasting imprint on the social and economic landscape of modern Britain. The poll tax crisis. In the late 1980s, Margaret Thatcher faced one of the most contentious challenges of her premiership: the introduction of the community charge, commonly known as the poll tax. Designed to replace local rates with a flat tax per adult, it aimed to make local government financing fairer and more accountable. However, the policy quickly sparked widespread opposition. Many viewed it as regressive, disproportionately affecting low-income citizens, and protests escalated across the country. The tax became a lightning rod for discontent, culminating in demonstrations and, at times, violent clashes in the streets. For Thatcher, the poll tax represented principle and reform. She believed it would encourage responsibility and fairness in local governance. Yet the political and social backlash revealed the limits of even decisive leadership. Public anger intensified, eroding confidence in her government and fueling internal dissent within the Conservative Party. The crisis tested Thatcher's reputation as the Iron Lady. Her unyielding commitment to policy clashed with popular sentiment, illustrating the tension between conviction and compromise. While the tax was eventually repealed after her resignation, the poll tax remains a defining example of the challenges leaders face when bold reform confronts public resistance. This chapter explores the poll tax crisis as a pivotal moment in Thatcher's later premiership, showing how principle, politics, and public opinion can collide with lasting consequences for both a nation and its leader. Internal revolt and loss of power. By the early 1990s, Margaret Thatcher's long and transformative premiership faced growing opposition from within her own party. Years of bold reforms, unyielding leadership, and controversial policies, combined with the lingering effects of the poll tax, had strained her support among Conservative MPs. The Iron Lady, once celebrated for her decisive governance, now faced whispers of rebellion and mounting criticism from colleagues who questioned whether her style had become too rigid, too divisive, or out of step with the times. Leadership challenges within the party reflected deeper tensions over direction, strategy, and the balance between principle and pragmatism. Thatcher initially resisted pressure to step down, determined to uphold her vision and maintain control. Yet the internal revolt was relentless. Faced with the reality that party unity was fracturing and that continued leadership might threaten Conservative dominance, she ultimately chose to resign in November 1990. Her departure marked the end of an era. Thatcher's loss of power was not a defeat of her ideas, but a reminder that even the most determined leaders must navigate the delicate balance between conviction and consensus. The episode highlighted both the limits of political authority and the enduring impact of a leader whose reforms had permanently reshaped Britain. This chapter examines the final months of Thatcher's premiership, capturing the tension, strategy, and human dimension behind the internal revolt that ended one of the most remarkable political careers of modern Britain. Resignation and the end of an era. On November 22, 1990, Margaret Thatcher resigned as Prime Minister, bringing to a close an era defined by conviction, transformation, and controversy. After more than a decade in office, the Iron Lady stepped down not in defeat to an opposition party, but amid challenges from within her own Conservative ranks. Thatcher's resignation marked the end of a period in which she reshaped Britain's economy, redefined its politics, and left an indelible imprint on society. Her leadership had been uncompromising. Bold reforms, firm stances on union power, privatization, and international affairs earned admiration and criticism alike. Yet even as her policies divided opinion, they transformed the nation, leaving a legacy that would be debated for generations. The moment of departure was both personal and symbolic. Thatcher had led with clarity of principle and an unyielding sense of purpose, but she recognized the importance of party unity and national stability. Her decision to resign reflected a willingness to put the country above personal ambition, even as her influence remained profound. This chapter reflects on the significance of her resignation, the conclusion of a transformative premiership, the passing of a political era, an enduring impact of a leader whose vision, determination, and unwavering conviction shaped modern Britain. Life after Downing Street. After leaving 10 Downing Street in 1990, Margaret Thatcher stepped away from the center of political power, but her influence and presence remained unmistakable. She transitioned from prime minister to elder stateswoman, engaging in public speaking, writing, and international diplomacy, while reflecting on the legacy of her decade in office. Life after Downing Street allowed Thatcher a different kind of freedom. Without the immediate pressures of daily governance, she could articulate her ideas, defend her policies, and offer insight into global affairs. Her memoirs, speeches, and commentary shaped public understanding of her time in power, reinforcing her image as a principled and determined leader. Thatcher remained a polarizing figure. Supporters continued to admire her courage, clarity, and steadfastness, while critics scrutinized the social and economic consequences of her reforms. She embraced both perspectives, confident in her convictions, and committed to explaining her vision. Even in retirement, Thatcher maintained a strong voice on issues ranging from European integration to foreign policy, demonstrating that leadership and influence extend beyond office. Her post-premiership years were a continuation of her commitment to principle, intellect, and public engagement. This chapter explores how the Iron Lady navigated life after formal power, balancing reflection, advocacy, and influence, while solidifying her place in history as one of Britain's most consequential leaders. Controversy, criticism, and cultural impact. Margaret Thatcher's leadership was never without debate. Her policies, style, and uncompromising approach provoked admiration, but also intense criticism. From economic reforms to social policy, from union confrontations to foreign affairs, her decisions sparked passionate responses across Britain and beyond. Thatcher's critics argued that her focus on markets and individual responsibility deepened social inequality, eroded public services, and neglected vulnerable communities. Protests, strikes, and public demonstrations became hallmarks of the tensions her government inspired. To some, she represented rigidity, elitism, or divisiveness. Yet Thatcher's supporters celebrated her decisiveness, vision, and ability to restore Britain's confidence and global standing. She became a symbol of strength, principle, and leadership, someone willing to make difficult choices despite unpopularity or opposition. Her cultural impact extended far beyond politics. Thatcher became a figure in literature, film, and art. Her persona, the Iron Lady, entered the public imagination, inspiring both satire and admiration. She influenced debates on gender, power, and authority, challenging perceptions of what women could achieve in leadership. This chapter examines the duality of her legacy. A leader whose ideas reshaped a nation, provoked controversy, and left a cultural footprint that endures. Through both criticism and admiration, Margaret Thatcher became not only a political figure, but a symbol of conviction, controversy, and lasting influence. Margaret Thatcher's enduring legacy. Margaret Thatcher's life and leadership left an indelible mark on Britain and the world. As the first female prime minister, she broke barriers and redefined what was possible in politics, demonstrating that conviction, intellect, and determination could shape the destiny of a nation. Her policies transformed Britain's economy, reduced the power of unions, and promoted free markets, leaving a lasting imprint on governance and society. Yet her tenure also sparked debate and division, reminding us that transformative leadership carries both progress and cost. Thatcher's decision continued to inspire discussion, analysis, and reflection decades after she left office. Beyond politics, Thatcher became a cultural icon. Her image, speeches, and persona, the Iron Lady, symbolized strength, resolve, and principle. She challenged assumptions about gender, leadership, and authority, inspiring generations of women and leaders worldwide. The enduring legacy of Margaret Thatcher lies not only in her policies, but in her example, a leader committed to principle, willing to face opposition, and capable of shaping history through determination and vision. Her life reminds us that leadership is as much about conviction and courage as it is about compromise and consensus. This epilogue reflects on a figure whose influence continues to be felt in politics, economics, and culture, capturing the complexities, controversies, and achievements of one of modern Britain's most consequential leaders. For more powerful stories from history, subscribe to Legacy by MAO. Your support truly matters.